The governor has set a 60% goal for college graduation rate in Michigan. We're at 30% now, so hitting that 60, and we support that. I think we all support that, but hitting that 60% rate is going to mean almost every child is going to have to not only get a high school degree, but then get some sort of post-high school training. I don't think we can afford to lose very many of them if we're going to hit that 60% mark on the timetable she set. So I'd like to start by asking our panelists, what's it going to take to get there? What's it going to take to hit that 60% mark? It's not just going to occur naturally, is it, Russ?
Yeah, it's not going to happen naturally, and in fact, it's going to take a restructure of our educational system. Mm-hmm. The system now is, and for almost 100 years now, has been kind of a bootstrap system, which inherently has leaks in the process. If you take the people who got into college in our region, the Detroit region, the six-county region, and Detroit, if you look at their college progression, and these are the folks that got into higher education, 46 out of 100 don't get a college credential. And when I say college credential, those are the things that count for 60 by 30. 46 out of 100 don't get a certificate, an associate's, or a bachelor's degree. And for Detroit citizens, it's 76 out of 100 who start college do not get through. That kind of leakage in the system is what has to be repaired. And in order to repair that, we're going to have to change the way we do higher education. And as a leader in higher education, I'm the first to admit we have to do more to support students getting from the beginning of the pipeline to the end. And we're just starting that in the region. In fact, we were just starting to make some real progress when the pandemic hit. And I'm optimistic we're going to get more. The Detroit Promise is an example. That is free college for students who graduate from a Detroit high school, and we're proud to have the most Detroit Promise students. That was the business community coming to support us. And on the backside of an education, we also need to show students that they have a meaningful career that could go anywhere, from a surgeon to a technical job. And the Ralph C. Wilson Jr. Foundation has already funded that with an early middle college where we started in the fall of 2020 enrolling students from high schools. 16 area high schools can send students to our campus to start learning about HVAC and CNC, but also the new kind of technical education, which is app development and cybersecurity. So we're going to have to help students see their path through, and we're going to have to start to stop this leakage.
So Nolan, one of the things, and I agree with Russ, is, but we have to also take accountability in higher education, like the about K-12. Too many people say, well, it's K-12 isn't achieving. We created a College of Urban Education about 7 years ago, but we did it quite differently, a master's degree, and we changed it with diversity and inclusion in the curriculum, data analytics in the curriculum, weekly coaching. And there have been double-digit increases in teacher effectiveness. And in fact, students did better in math and reading than the rest of the school district. And so we're creating an undergraduate of urban education. And it's going to be a STEM undergraduate, starts next fall, in science, in math, in technology. And this weekly coaching, they'll be like the nursing model, they'll be into the K-12 schools immediately and learning. And so when they get to us, and that was your original question, many of them are first-generation students. And so we have about 30% of our students are students of color, 40% are first generation, and we've been doing a peer mentoring. And we found that the students who come to us who don't use peer mentoring retain at a 69%. But the ones who come to us and do peer mentoring, first-generation students, retain at 91%. And they don't have the guidance, they're smart. And these students are smart in the school systems. But we have to dramatically change how we do, how we prepare teachers. And you know, it's easy, we have to be more accountable in higher education.
Now, Angelique, we were talking backstage, and by the way, welcome. Angelique's a week and a half on the job.
Thank you. Yes, a week and a half on the job. This is my first time at the Mackinac Policy Conference. I feel like I'm at like a family reunion and I've married into the family. But it's so great to be here.
Now, we were talking backstage about, where I live in suburban Detroit, the expectation for an average child is success. We don't worry too much about that child succeeding. A few miles away in Detroit, the expectation for an average child is not so certain, and it takes an exceptional child in many cases to overcome the barriers to their success. And that's not just what happens in the classroom, right? I mean, there are so many other factors that we have to consider when we think about how we assure a child can get through high school and then through college and then on to a productive life.
You know, what I would say is emerging from the pandemic, there are a few lessons that we have to take with us. One of them is symbiosis, that we are all interconnected. And we saw that through COVID. If I am sick, you are sick. And if you thrive, I thrive. And so the systems that are in place are actually what have never been built for Black and brown children, whether it's economic systems or education systems. And so while a child might be able to navigate a broken system, it isn't because they themselves are exceptional. It is because the opportunity gap, not the achievement gap, the opportunity gap has been closed for them, right? And so this is a moment where we need to realize the exquisite design of racism is everywhere. And so we have to look with a laser focus on all of these systems right now, not on race agnostic policies, but really on anti-racist policies so that we don't feel like only the exceptional make it through. But the systems are actually there to serve Black and brown children, especially in the city of Detroit, and are built around them. And that's why I'm so excited to have these partners on the stage, because they're so thoughtful in creating these approaches.
Talk about your survey of Detroit children you were
Yes,
mentioning.
so I mentioned to you backstage, I asked you the question of if you, what you thought, if you asked a group of 14 to 18-year-old, predominantly Black youth from Detroit, the last year and a half, what their sense of hope or optimism would be. And Skillman Foundation has done this research. It's pilot research. More research is to be done. But you said,
I would think it was quite low.
yeah, there is a tremendous sense of optimism and agency. And the reason is because we don't have to empower young Black and brown people. They are powerful people, and they know it. It's just they are not necessarily being set up for success. And so when you say, what are our institutions doing, whether it's a foundation or whether it's a college or whether it's the city, it's on us at this moment to tap into this existing power and channel it for our collective benefit.
Nicole, there's an economic consequence to all of that. We were speaking with the mayor yesterday who said he's got so many jobs coming into Detroit now, so many employers wanting to come here and hire people, and he can't provide them with the workers they need. He can't provide them with the workforce that employers who are doing site selection require. I mean, this is a critical element in the city's future success.
It is, Nolan, and I think to my co-panelists' points here, I believe there's this huge opportunity for employers to be part of the solution, and we are so fortunate in Detroit to have groups of employers like the Mayor's Workforce Development Board and Business Leaders of Michigan and the CEO Roundtable, and we are able to engage employers directly about what they need, so that when we talk about post-secondary success and we start to back that up into what does that mean for K-12 solutions, we're able to pull back or pull forward, or however you want to think about it, what employers are going to need, what they know they need, what we project they might need. Getting that into the conversation early and often is going to be one of the key elements of any solution we design.
So what responsibility, Nicole, do employers have when they come here and say, here's a list of the workers we need, here are the jobs we need filled? What responsibility do they have to get involved and help create those workers from the people we already have here who may need some skills training?
Yeah, so they have a tremendous responsibility to do that. And I think what we've seen over the past 12 to 18 months is that more and more employers are recognizing that responsibility. They're excited to know that their voice matters. They have a deep responsibility to convert what they need into competencies or action that is or language that is actionable for those who are working in public systems, in philanthropy, in higher ed, so that we can translate their needs into what do we have to do at the front line, in the classroom, in the community, what do we have to do to prepare workers to be ready for the organizations that are emerging on the other side of the pandemic.
In fact, Nolan, one of the things that the business leaders have said to us is we need to provide a different kind of degree. So we broke apart like our cybersecurity degree into stackables. And so that people can get started, they take these, and they all can stack up to the degree at some point so they can get employed right away. And employers are critical to our success in higher education to not only tell us the need, but be part of the solution and actually develop the programs together.
Now, Rick, back to my first point of, we've done this job of convincing people they need more than just high school, but we still have a good number of folks, of students, of young people who wash out in that first year, in that first semester, and so all that effort sort of goes by the way, and all that scholarship money. What have you done at Davenport to get those kids through, particularly the high-risk students?
Well, part of it has to do with as I mentioned earlier, many of them haven't been to higher education before, and they don't have the guidance, and it's like the first-generation students they do really well once they get past the first year. It's that very first year. They're not studying enough, so we actually mandate for so many of them study tables, if you will, like we do in athletics. But also, we provide extra work, like the Khan Academy. We use that for math, and it really shortens the time for them to be able to be successful. But we found we've actually increased our retention rate by 30% and our grad rate by 174%. And the reason is they have the same advisor when they come to us all the way through. And that's really part of retention, is they have the ability, but they have a lot of questions, and so they drop out early if they're not paid attention to. So, it is our responsibility to bring them through, to not only graduate them, see, that's a misnomer, to only graduate. They have to get a good job and a good career. They have to have a place to go. So we spend a lot of time with high careers. We can actually develop a new degree in 60 days, and it's based upon employer demand. So it's really important that we're able to keep them and graduate them.
So Russ, before the pandemic, many colleges were reporting that 60% of their students needed remedial training, and that half of the students themselves didn't feel prepared for the rigors of college. What do we need to be doing in our K-12 school systems to get these kids ready?
Well, the first thing to do is what most of us in this room did when we were young thinking about college, is start a college-going culture. The reality is you have to think about yourself in college from an early age and almost have an expectation about that for yourself. And if you don't have that, you're trying to build a college-going culture while you start. So it's engaging high schools, mostly through dual enrollment or early college programs, where high school students can go to their local community college, and for the state allotment that the state gives that school district, for that student to have a high school experience, they can take that money and go to the local community college and earn college credit and start to get a college-going culture. And we're proud that over 2,200 students on our campus now, whether virtual or on ground, are from high schools. But the truth is, we have to convince the business community that this is an imperative, 60 by 30. It's rare we have a political agreement on this, but the reason why we have this rare opportunity is because we look around the country and people with more college credentials have more income. And every single societal issue after that is better. And so if we're going to have more college credentials, we're going to have to increase the amount of college-going culture, because the system is not going to have any more students coming through it. The state demographer tells us high school graduates are going to go down. So if we're going to improve this, what are we going to do? And the good news is the best practices are known. They're essentially supporting students more than we ever thought. When I went to college, it was a washout structure. It has to be completely 180 now, because those students are coming with no experience or expectation of college, and they need much, much more support.
He went during the Great Depression, so
Nolan, if I can add.
Please.
So much of success in college starts so much earlier.
Right.
And so it has to do with kindergarten readiness and third grade reading levels. It has to do with after-school programming, which is so critical in terms of thinking beyond the world around you. And so there are these mile markers that are nationally recognized that lead to being able to, once you get into college, have success. But I would also say that there are other things that are beyond those mile markers, and at Skillman Foundation, some of the things that we've been investing in are systemic hacks, like principals. Principals are change agents within the school community. They're often overburdened and under-resourced. And so, Leadership Detroit is a program that's part of the chamber. I would posit that every leadership development program should have principals as part of it, because they manage this ecosystem that's extremely complicated. Another systemic hack is having Black teachers. And there have been researchers from Johns Hopkins that have found that a Black child that is exposed to a Black teacher is much more likely, 13% more likely, to go on to college and graduate. A Black child that is exposed to 2 or more teachers is 32% more likely to go on to college and graduate. So there are things that are beyond just building supports to get through a system that, again, is a broken system that isn't meant for our children. But those are some places where we can invest.
So here's the other hard truth. We are kidding ourselves if we believe that we are going to prepare K-12 students for post-secondary success, absent considering what's going on in the home. If we don't attend to the adults who are in that child's life, their parents, their guardians, their grandparents, neighbors, others in the community, people in their faith-based community, places where those kids live and play, and in the case of Detroit, where they work during the summer with the Mayor's Grow Detroit's Summer Youth Employment Program, if we don't attend to the adults, we're kidding ourselves. And I want to tie this back to Raj Chetty's presentation. When you look at the Opportunity Insights work, and you look at the success of young people who are at Princeton or Harvard or any of the Ivies or almost Ivy schools, the principal difference between those kids and the kids so they showed Wayne State on the lower end of mobility. It isn't because Wayne State isn't a fantastic school. It's because of the social circles that you get to travel in. It's because of what you learn in your social network, the adults to whom you have access, what your summer experience is, the skills you learn at home to be able to be successful in a large organization like those with the CEO Roundtable or a BLM, or in smaller companies, small businesses. If we look at non-traditional careers, there's a very large contingent of Black developers, real estate developers who are here. The Dennis Archer Juniors and the Hiram Jacksons and the Sonia Mays. Those are important jobs in this community that if we don't get our adults connected and ready to support their kids, we don't have a hope.
Nicole makes a good point. I'm sorry, Nolan.
No, that's okay.
That's the crossroads we're at right now in higher education, is receiving students that have not had that support and then trying to build that, that protection to a student while simultaneously transforming a higher education process that was not ever intended to do that, and sometimes wrongfully took pride in not doing that. So you're starting to see the best practices here in Southeast Michigan. One is to give them, we have very different names, coach, mentor, advisor, but to engage that student all the time, like my mom did when I failed an algebra test, that told me you have to do better. Another is to say to that student, you're going to experience some kind of crisis during your first year, likely, and it's usually going to be associated with money or emotion. We want you to come directly to us. We'll ask almost no questions. We'll solve the crisis for you, and we'll keep you going forward. That makes sense both for the economics of a college, because when we have the stop-outs, it hurts our bottom line. But if we're going to get more credentials in Michigan, we're going to have to realize that these first-generation and non-college going students need way more support. Right. And the reason we haven't done it is it's really expensive, and it's hard to admit we're not succeeding yet.
But
and we're ready to do that.
I want to make sure that we aren't saying that it is the fault of parents for not providing these supports. I want to make sure that what we're understanding, and this is the link from education systems to economic systems, is that there is a bifurcation in the economy right now. We're moving into a knowledge economy. Those of us that worked remotely, that were able to participate in our child's education because we weren't out the door trying to earn money and actually exposing ourselves without health care during COVID, those of us, we have the privilege of being able to provide additional supports. And so it's an economic hack. It's an economic fix that allows everyone to get those types of supports. And I just want to make sure that often what we do is we think that we're trying to fix the student or we blame the teacher, but we haven't provided a nourishing, abundant economy that allows everyone to thrive. And until we do that, we're not going to see a shift in education.
At the News, we have advocated for a Marshall Plan, if you will, for literacy, for taking a lot of this COVID money we're getting and supporting programs like Beyond Basics and others that promise to quickly bring kids up to grade level reading and well before they reach 11th and 12th grade. The importance of literacy and the ability to read in assuring college readiness. Speak to that.
Well, I will tell you, it's the number one thing about success in college is your ability to read, above every other category. I also wanted to add, to get to the 60% that you talked about earlier, it can't be just, as Russ talked about, the declining K-12, is working with adults currently in the workforce.
Right.
And corporate partnerships, and actually offering the degrees right at the company, at their convenience, at their employees' convenience. Because to get to that 60%, those certifications or degrees have to come from all levels, not just. But reading is the most important element. Math is critically important too, but reading will tell their success.
Nicole, do you have the resources you need when you have a worker who wants to be part of the job market but lacks some of the basic skills? Do you have the resources you need to get those folks ready and employable?
So we have some of the resources we need. We have some partners who are ready to do the hard work, Rick, as you said, of providing space and time to build their skill set so that they'll be successful. We have some of the community-based organizations we need. We have, growing partnerships with, Russ and I talk fairly regularly about, what we're going to need to build together, quite frankly, to produce the kind of talent that employers need. But the truth is, the problem is complex, and it is thorny. It's a wicked problem. And we are kidding ourselves if we say or think there is some simple solution to this. It's going to take all of us leaning in different and new and urgent ways to be able to unpack the challenges.
The status quo, it can't stay. It's got to change dramatically. We were talking about this earlier about how we in higher ed have to take accountability to help improve, and it's got to be a different system. If it's the same system, we're going to get the same result.
I will say, though, we have this incredible opportunity with the American Rescue Plan Act funding,
Right.
with the formulaic appropriations that are coming through the budget at the federal level and at the state level, with whatever comes next in the infrastructure bill. I mean, there's an enormous amount of money coming to fund, along with our philanthropic partners like Ralph C. Wilson Jr. Foundation and Skillman and others, an enormous amount of funding. So money won't be the problem. Working across sectors, having deeper conversations, pulling back the top line numbers to understand what's really at the core, what are we really solving for? This is an amazing opportunity, and I'm tremendously hopeful that we're going to make good use of it.
Can we talk money for a second?
Sure. We always like to talk
money
money.
as well.
I know. I
That's
get that a lot.
different conversation.
But so last night I was looking up some information and, looking up how much does it cost per child to educate a child in Michigan? And it's $9,500 per child. How much do you think it costs to imprison a person in Michigan? Well, someone actually knows exactly how much it costs, $38,000. So we are getting what we pay for, right?
And 75% of those prisoners don't have a high school degree.
Yes. And so your point about reading, third grade reading, that is a mile marker. And actually, you can look at third grade reading levels to determine future prison beds that you will create. It is that dire.
Or future graduates.
Or future graduates.
Right.
But the money will determine the direction that it goes in. And so we do have this moment with ARPA dollars coming in, but if it was just about money, we would have fixed it long ago, because a lot of money has gone into trying to create change. What often happens is that those that are most marginalized, that are most impacted by the systems, are not the designers of the solution. That it's different policymakers who are least proximate to the issues, whether it's in philanthropy or, you know, in the civic sector or academia. And so we have to do it differently this time. And we actually have to take this influx of money and create some long-term fixes, because this money is going to go. And unless we create those fixes, the problems will stay.
And
But
it's
we're on a
attending
timetable here, and you know that money could be gone before we figure it out. I think that's my worry, my concern, that you know, we got all these great ideas, and then you know the money's sitting there and gone before
There's some practices
we get a
that
chance to shape it.
they're available right now, though. And we were just talking about this earlier, getting our minds together, and there's structural change that needs to occur. But I think there's a willingness to do so, certainly in higher education, and I know in the business community, city, and the foundation. So I think getting it together now is important.
Russ?
You know,
Yet,
one of the things that we talk about often is, you know, so many of us have too many projects, too many initiatives happening all at the same time. But this is a moment where we have to attend to the short-term solutions, like in Detroit, the Learn to Earn program, where we are paying Detroiters $10 an hour up to 20 hours a week to finish their high school diploma or their GED, while we are attending to the longer-term solutions,
That's right.
Angelique, that you and Rick and Russ have named.
I think there's a real opportunity, whether it's ARPA dollars or not, to ask higher education, what about this graduation rate? What about this equity gap? You know, we're the third worst state in the country in the difference between an African American's chance to get a college diploma versus a white person's. You should ask college presidents, what about that?
He is asking us.
We put out almost 1,900 degrees or certificates a year. And I'm very soon going to announce that we're going to do better. And we should all be doing that in higher education. And I think these ARPA dollars should be funneled towards institutions that will address that, both at the intake, which is now Michigan Reconnect and Futures for Frontliners, is pushing students in. Now find colleges who want to partner with employers who will pull students through the process to meaningful careers. And Business Leaders for Michigan is doing that now with 3 sectors where we're hopeful we'll come together with a general constellation of skills that I can take to students and say, not only will we give you those skills and an opportunity to be successful where you never thought possible, we have this employer who maybe is promising to interview you, but maybe even promising to hire you. That's the future that we could invest some money to make happen.
Before we run out of time, I wanted to ask about the most immediate concern. I've got a granddaughter's a senior, will be graduating high school and going to college in the fall.
Henry Ford College, right?
Well, maybe. we can talk about scholarships here afterwards. But you know, she spent the last year and a half in a disruptive school environment, and you could see the enthusiasm for learning and for school waning over that period. And I imagine that's universal, regardless of where you went to school. This class, or these classes that have gone through this pandemic period, learn from home, remote learning, how worried are you about their success once they get to college? I know the first group's probably sitting in college seats right now. How worried are you, and is it too late to help them?
I don't think so. I take a different view of it. This is to stay. We've been doing online education since the 90s. And what we have to do is make sure that they have broadband, that they have the ability to be online on a regular basis. But this isn't going away, and even it's throughout the country. And what we have to do is make online education, like we're looking at now using artificial intelligence and virtual reality, like in a speech class, you wear the goggles. The artificial intelligence will actually respond. Very interesting stuff online. I don't think it's going to long-term affect the students who are coming to us, but it provides a responsibility to us to make sure that we understand that there may be some gap. And some institutions, and we did one in the summer, early entrance for those students who felt that they fell behind a little bit coming out of high school. But I don't think it's going away. I think we're going to see more and more students choosing to be online.
Angelique, last word, because we're out of time.
Here's what I'll say. We spent the last year and a half learning outside of the classroom, but we haven't turned the world into a living laboratory.
Right.
That's our opportunity. It's not just beholden on our partners here who are doing great things. That's everyone in this room has a responsibility to each of the schools in their neighborhood, regardless of whether their children are there. Invest their time, their intellectual capital, and make possibility happen.
Well, thank you all. We appreciate it. Let's hear it for our panel.